Hey there everyone, let's just get right down to the brass tacks. Everyone's convinced that Minato's been nerfed out of the blue. Well, I know my rewrite is about an anime, but I'm using a more realistic outlook on my writing. Minato is broken in terms of power. So much so that those who choose to fight him are forced to get clever with how they take on that challenge. Because in a basic ninjutsu/taijutsu fight, Minato is going to win 99% of the time. The comment section off last video was pretty evenly divided between either Minato being nerfed or his opponents getting smart with him. But to defend my own writing, and to use the rarely tired phrase, let me cook. Danzo is not infallible. Maybe take a second listen to that fight, because Tsunade basically shatters one of his arms into a million pieces. Because sometimes, as tricksy as some of these opponents seem to be, they're also at very specific times vulnerable to the very same thing that everyone else is. But enough about that. I know people like to talk about power scaling, and it's inevitably going to happen in this rewrite as well. So maybe I should just let people assume the completely incorrect things sometimes. Last time, we sorted out some loose ends at Iwa as well. There's very little else to do in order to close this arc out. In fact, I think I'll be able to finish this arc today. So let's just dive right into it, shall we? Hinata Hyuga was taken by the Akatsuki. The Leaf had two theories about where the Akatsuki made their home base. It was either in the Land of Rain, where there was a civil war raging amidst the international warring, or it was in the Land of Water. In the Land of Rain, Hanzo only had control of about half the nation, vying constantly to take over the other half. His opponent was rumored to be a member of the Akatsuki. Meanwhile, based on the presence of the swordsman in Akatsuki colors at the Chunin exams, it was possible the crime syndicate called the Land of Water home. So while Team Jiraiya was dispatched to the Land of Rain, Team Kakashi was sent to the Land of Water. The Land of Rain was small, but mired by incredibly powerful forces in Hanzo and whoever was strong enough to oppose him. Meanwhile, the Land of Water was currently besieged by Cloud and Sand alike. This is a reminder that Cloud, Sand, and Leaf are allied together in this war. They were too distracted to catch the incursion of the small, four-man team of Leaf Shinobi trespassing on their land. Despite the relative safety of their anonymity, Kakashi has chosen the covert path in traversing the country. To keep themselves undetected, Anko deploys snakes to do rudimentary scouting for them before they move on to a new point. Hayate had been using disguises to secret himself into small villages, still untouched by this war. While in the heart of enemy land, he ate at restaurants, stayed at inns, and eavesdropped on the discussions of locals to find out what was happening elsewhere in the country. They learned that together with Gaara of the Sand, the Cloud had deployed their own Jinchuruki to attempt a quick victory. However, due to a place known as the Acid Swamps, there was a free beast here, the six-tailed god of slugs. Apparently, upon seeing each other, the Eight Tails and the Six Tails engaged in a fight that no one could stop. Even the host of the Eight Tails was powerless to stop his beast from fighting. While the ninja of both sides continued to fight each other, there now seemed to be a perpetual battle between two-tailed beasts happening alongside all of it. From what Hayate gleaned, the Land of Water was in chaos because of the battling tailed beasts. As always, this was good news for them, who needed every distraction possible to pass through the country undiscovered. However, normal villagers would not have the information they sought. They needed to get their hands on a jonin or higher to interrogate regarding something as serious as stealing the heir of a prestigious Leaf house. Not to mention that the Akatsuki weren't necessarily aligned with the country they possibly worked out of. they could be fugitives in every nation in the world, enemies of all. Ao was caught unaware as he made a beeline through the forest to deliver a message that could not be trusted in any form other than orally. Now he sat tied around a column of stone in a cave with snakes, watching his every movement. The leaf shinobi that had grabbed him disarmed him of every tool and weapon he had. Ao had been assigned to deliver a message from the Mizukage to the feudal lord in a part of the country that was not yet war-torn. It was meant to be an easy, fast task. That he was blindsided by a squad of leaf shinobi was a terrifying prospect that the three newly allied nations meant to take out one nation together. Meanwhile, at the mouth of the cave, Kakashi's discussing with his team how they're going to approach their interrogation. It was extremely lucky for them to catch an Anbu singled out. Had it been a full squad, it would have been too dangerous for them to approach. But ultimately, though the Land of Water are their enemy, Kakashi doesn't want to leave any kind of mark that they've been through these parts. As such, they'll interrogate him and then place various seals on him to prevent him from talking about the interrogation. At the very least, it'll take until the end of the war before they undo the seals, distracted by everything else. And it could double as a distraction should the Mizukage drop other priorities to get this Anbu to talk. It was doubly interesting that this one had a single Byakugan eye. Considering who they were looking for, Hinata, this was looking promising, even if it was potentially bad news for the young Kunoichi. Anko and Choza took a step back, allowing Kakashi and Hayate to lead the interrogation. When asked where he got his Byakugan from, Ao claims to have won it as a trophy when defeating a leaf shinobi in combat. There was no foul play. He won fair and square and got a fantastic prize from it. Given the seal that exists on the vast majority of Hyuga's foreheads, Choza doubts this claim. To have claimed a clean Byakugan, Ao would have had to have defeated a Hyuga of the main branch. The members who belong to the main branch are recognizable. Given that Ao's an Anbu, he certainly would have known who he had defeated. But he recognizes that they're trying to implicate him, and he snaps his lips shut tight. While Hayate is being direct with his questions as to the identity of the Hyuga and where the eye truly came from, Kakashi is attempting to ask offbeat questions about the war and the last time Ao even fought a leaf shinobi was. Though Ao continues to answer them, he remains incredibly cryptic and unhelpful. Withdrawing temporarily, Kakashi and Hayate convene with their two partners to discuss how they can make Ao talk. Anko shrugs and tells Kakashi that her snakes carry a wide variety of venoms. They could make his throat close up, or make his eyes bulge if they really wanted to. Choza suggests the more bold-faced option of simply breaking bones. Kakashi reminds them that they're meant to return Ao to his allies later. Are any of them proficient enough in genjutsu to trick an Anbu? When they turn to Hayate for his suggestion, he's already walked away from the group, returning to Ao. As they turn towards him, he brandishes his sword, and silently cuts Ao's right hand off. Ao screams through the wrap that Hayate had put around his head and mouth. Performing a fire-breathing jutsu, Hayate heats up his blade to near glowing and presses the searing metal against Ao's gaping wound. "Give us answers, or I'll keep removing chunks of you." Infuriated by Hayate's decision, but forced to maintain a united front so Ao doesn't suspect a shaken resolve, the other three discuss which body part they should remove next if he clams up again. Ao wheezes in tortured exhaustion as Hayate finally pulls his blade away from the stump where his hand once was. To add insult to injury, Hayate picks up Ao's dismembered hand and puts it on the prisoner's lap. He muses if that's what the Hyuga felt like when Ao stole their Kekkei Genkai. Ao must come from a no-name family that they had to steal tricks from another bloodline. He comes from nothing, and should this silence keep up, he'll return to nothing. Despite anything that Hayate says to him, Ao remains defiantly silent. Sighing, Kakashi rubs the back of his head. From the moment he was dispatched from Konoha to retrieve Hinata, Kakashi was forced to assume the worst-case scenario. They needed Ao's stolen Byakugan to confirm later whether it belonged to Hinata. Given the path Hayate chose for the interrogation, they could dress this up as part of the torture. Staying Hayate as he prepares to remove another piece of Ao, Kakashi brandishes a small vial of solution. The vial's just large enough to house an eyeball, and Ao picks up on the fact right away. Suddenly lurching against his bindings, Ao attempts to be as difficult as possible to prevent a successful extraction. Leaping to his sides, Choza and Anko hold his body and head still while Kakashi carefully removes the patch around Ao's eye and begins removing it. He hollers against them again, this time not from pain, but from loss. The Byakugan must have been like a superpower to any normal person. Kakashi lies to Ao that he'll return the eye to him if he shares any information he knows about stolen jutsu, and even free him to go for help. Though seemingly unperturbed by the loss of his hand, Ao's seriously bothered by the Byakugan stolen back from him. Sighing, Ao finally opens his mouth and tells them there's a hospital on the East Coast. The building has been designated as a hospital by the government, but any captured shinobi that are brought there are harvested for the benefit of the Land of Water. That includes anything from special weapons to any matter of Kekkei Genkai and Hiden technique. If it can be extracted, it will be. However, this hospital generally doesn't perform deals out of its location, so if they're trying to track down a thief, they likely won't find them there. But he continues to insist that he won the eye in single combat against a true-born Hyuga. If they want a pseudo-black market, that hospital's the closest they'll get to one. However, he refuses to tell them anything more than the vague description of East Coast. Kakashi knows how tight-lipped Ao is, and he'll not be sharing any information more than this. However, Ao must know that such broad information wouldn't be enough to earn back the Byakugan from a collection of leaf jonin. Cutting the rope that binds Ao to the pillar, Kakashi frees him. Ao seems shocked that Kakashi held up any part of the bargain, but when he holds out his hand for the Byakugan, Kakashi raises an eyebrow at him and points towards the exit of the cave. He cites aloud that without his hand, Ao's automatically lost his position as an Anbu. His status is shattered, and he's lost the Byakugan as well. He'll be rejected now from his Mizukage and forced into retirement, a dishonorable discharge for an Anbu of the Mist. As Ao flees the cave, they convene again for another conversation. Hayate is frustrated that Kakashi was so willing to let him leave. However, they're all angry that Hayate made a decision so final on his own. They might have had to turn to violent torture anyways, but Hayate callously removed all of their other options first. Kakashi jabs him with an angry finger and threatens to court-martial him for not expressly following the instructions of the lead jonin. Such a loose cannon cannot be trusted in teamwork situations. Hayate knocks his hand aside and tells Kakashi that the former Leaf Anbu was too weak to make the hard decisions. He was merely expediting the interrogation. Heated by this exchange, Kakashi dares Hayate to step out of line again. Before the two explode at each other, Choza steps between them. He shakes his head at Kakashi and tells Hayate to cool his head. Ultimately, if they're looking to who's the most experienced at this kind of thing, Kakashi's word they must follow. When Ao gets to his Mizukage, he'll tell them that the Leaf have entered the country, Kakashi tells them, taking Choza's silent advice and moving on. It'll rattle their strategy to think 3 different nations are attacking them at once, when they've planned only to defend against 2 nations all this time. For the time being, their location is now wildly compromised, so they need to move on as quickly as possible. The cave they were in was quite small, but also nestled in a thick forest in the middle of nowhere. It was the best location to interrogate someone and not get found out. However, when they exit the cave, they emerge to 3 other Anbu staring silently back at them. weapons drawn. Kakashi nods in recognition of his potential mistake, trying to think of how they got there so quickly. With a hand missing, he didn't think Ao would be able to perform any kind of quick jutsu. But they also nabbed him out of the forest because he was totally alone. They'd only held him for 6 hours, and that was hardly enough time to raise alarm to send more Anbu. It was possible that, like with Jiraiya, Ao was able to summon his team, but that required 2 hands, even for a Sannin. Perhaps it was a scroll, but they disarmed Ao completely. Was this just sheer dumb luck? Kakashi had personally done surveillance of the area, and there was no village for miles in any direction. As freshly injured as Ao was, he would not have been able to get far, let alone call on such elite aid. Unfortunately, as much information as Kakashi had, they were still in enemy territory, and there were so many unknown factors at play. His team brandished their own weapons for the impending brawl. Naturally splitting off to face their own enemies, Kakashi takes 1 Anbu alone. Hayate also nabs one to take by himself. Meanwhile, Anko and Choza team up against the 3rd and final Anbu. Brandishing his Sharingan, Kakashi quickly flips between ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu to keep his opponent guessing on his next move. He keeps to simple tricks using the most basic ninjutsu and pedestrian genjutsu, but he juggles these jutsu with expert technical taijutsu to offset the opponent's expectations. His Anbu enemy responds in kind, performing strictly defensive jutsu from earth and water, whilst also nearly matching Kakashi in taijutsu. Unless Kakashi hopes to do real damage, he can't keep repeating the same basic jutsu, or they'll be continually stopped by the formidable responses. Meanwhile, with only minor tweaking, his taijutsu could go from barely missing his target to just barely hitting him. He puts clever spins on his basic ninjutsu as well, transforming a fireball into a delayed activation, or turning quicksand jutsu into regular sand jutsu. This throws his opponent off balance, who keeps responding according to Kakashi's hand seals, but ending up reacting inappropriately to the slightly altered jutsu. From the moment Kakashi's able to throw his opponent off balance, he takes advantage and presses that advantage. At the moment that his opponent makes a mistake, Kakashi throws a kunai instead of a fist and deals a fatal blow. Unlike with Ao, Kakashi does not allow this ninja to limp away in defeat, ending him properly this time. Hayate draws his sword against an Anbu that has no steel drawn. Attempting to end the fight quickly, Hayate dives in with pure offense and attempts to outmaneuver his opponent before they can mount any kind of counter. However, unimpeded by such a long blade, his opponent easily dives around and dodges his swings. It just takes once for his sword to get caught in a mudwall jutsu, and the opponent Anbu pierces his body with a kunai. Reluctantly releasing his sword, Hayate turns to face his opponent as the latter gets him into a headlock. Slumping enough to reach for his ankle, Hayate brandishes a long knife and uses it to stab into the Anbu's arm that's restraining him. Twirling away from his opponent, Hayate brandishes a kunai and conjures out 2 fire clones. Though not in the best conditions, Hayate performs the dance of the crescent moon as his opponent attempts to recover. As he and his clones smear into blurs, the Anbu is overcome and blasted away by the strike. Clones dispersing, Hayate falls to one knee, clutching at his chest where he was stabbed, but victorious all the same. Choza and Anko are a unique pairing. Anko's fast and responsive, while Choza's slow and powerful. But the Anbu they're facing is both fast and powerful, able to match them both in their fighting styles at the same time. Anko is quickly tiring as the Anbu constantly outmaneuvers her. Choza's nowhere near tired, however, and is able to erect several defensive jutsu from a distance to protect Anko from the Anbu's attempts to outflank her. Eventually, the Anbu loses interest in the cat-and-mouse game, turning all their attention to Choza, who welcomes the melee. Exhausted, Anko focuses her remaining chakra and allows her cursed seal on her shoulder to release, spreading the marking across her body. With the sudden surge of additional chakra, she's able to suddenly match pace with the Anbu that's attempting to break Choza's defense. Though Choza can easily defend the strikes of the Anbu, the latter is so much faster that Choza begins to sustain injuries. Darting back into the fray, Anko intercepts the Anbu and attempts to take on the battle single-handedly. Much to her chagrin, this still proves too much for her, and the Anbu gains another upper hand. Pushing herself too hard, Anko inadvertently enters the level 2 state of the Cursed Seal, and her body transforms to match. Thin horns encircle her head like a crown, and she grows a long tail, grotesque, not unlike Kimimara's but without the spines. Receiving a huge second surge of chakra, Anko performs a fast summoning jutsu and pulls out a 30-foot-long snake that launches at the Anbu without question. Using its animalistic reaction speed, the snake quickly twirls around the Anbu as Anko releases flaming shuriken at the man from a distance. Held in place by the snake, the man is unable to dodge, and Anko nails him directly. Projecting an elemental clone in front of himself, the Anbu twirls around and strikes the snake, putting up with the pain of multiple shuriken piercing him. His clone charges forward, bypassing Anko and surging a direct electrical shock through Choza, bringing the Akamichi to his knees. Having pulled too much chakra for fighting, Anko freezes in place and her snake is unsummoned. Her cursed seal recedes as she falls to all fours, remarking, "Boy, this is gonna hurt in the morning," before passing out. After defeating his own Anbu, Kakashi launches to the defense of his comrades and heads off the Anbu from finishing them off. The Anbu exhibits several flashes of the water element, launching dozens back-to-back and at record speeds. If Kakashi didn't have his Sharingan and his own copied abilities with it, he would have been unable to match the speed of these abilities thrown at him. The jutsu aren't all simple either. Water bullet jutsu into tornado of water jutsu into water drill jutsu into wave break jutsu. Kakashi responds in kind with sandstorm jutsu, one of his copied Sharingan abilities, that merges with the water and quickly turns their surroundings to mud. He also utilizes enhanced mud walls with all the appropriate material around to embolden it. Though Kakashi doesn't have a lot of chakra himself, he's shocked that his opponent has the stamina to launch this kind of offensive even after dealing with Anko and Choza. It was either an unbelievably talented ninja of the mist, or there's an external effect allowing this. Indeed, even after prolific use of his Sharingan, Kakashi doesn't feel tired at all. The only explanation that he can think of is that the battling tailed beasts are somewhere close by, for their overflowing chakra to be enhancing the entire area, just the same as how the Dreadlands in the Land of Rock works. He shouts to his fallen allies that are still conscious that the tailed beasts are close. With their presence, they have infinite chakra to keep fighting as long as they're not unconscious or dead. Injuries still hurt, but they won't run out of energy anytime soon. With this revelation, Kakashi activates his own Mangekyo Sharingan. And so the two remaining ninja continue their clashing of equal skill. With his Mangekyo brandished and the allowance to overuse it as much as he pleases, Kakashi takes advantage to utilize it as much as possible. But we zoom out now, high overhead. The fighting below continues endlessly, and we see 100 miles away, two great-tailed beasts smash into each other relentlessly. The slug's oozy acid smears across the landscape, and the bull's many tentacles fumble across the acid, nearly unaffected. On the north side of the Land of Water, there is a cloud of ash, blotting out what destruction was being met out there. Further out, the Land of Fire remains largely untouched. The Land of Wind as well, unblemished. The Land of Lightning has a few smoke clouds, doubtlessly from quiet incursions from the Land of Water. The Land of Rock, meanwhile, is a smitten ruin, as even now we see the Gobi, the five-tailed beast, release yet another breath of fog that ripples across the now barren countryside. Kiba Inuzuka was last seen in the village of Konoha on his way to the Chunin exams. More than anyone else, his vanishing is a true mystery. No one knows how he went missing or where he is now. Hinata Hyuga was taken by Kushimaru of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, and new member of the Akatsuki. She was taken even after both Darui of the Cloud and Neji Hyuga attempted and failed to protect her. Team Kakashi were dispatched to find and recover the Hyuga heiress. Choji Akimichi was taken by Shisui Uchiha on the same day as Hinata Hyuga. Though working in tandem with the Akatsuki during that venture, it is unknown as to whether Shisui is a part of the Akatsuki or if their goals entirely line up. Team Jiraiya was dispatched to find and recover the Akimichi heir. Following an assault from the Gobi in the Land of Rock, Neji Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha both went missing as well. Flanked by Rock Ninja, it can only be assumed that they were captured by the enemy. But where they're held and when they'll be discovered as missing is another matter entirely in the heat of war. Tenten, Rock Lee, Shino Aburame, and Naruto Uzumaki were vanished by a space-time jutsu at the end of the war with the Land of Rock. Having disappeared without a trace, it is completely unknown as to where these four ended up. Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka were the only two known survivors of the siege on Iwa. With no idea where else to go, the two began their trek back to Konoha by following the Land of Rock's coast back to the border and safer lands. Shikamaru Nara was buried alive by an elaborate trap laid by the Tsuchikage. However, with the help of Tamari of the Wind, they were able to break out of their miserable fate and live onwards. Soon, we will learn about the fates of all our beloved Konoha 12. And that's the end of the episode! But Polly, we didn't see how Kakashi's fight ended! Well, you'll learn of its conclusion next time. I wanted to give a small recap as to the fate of the Konoha 12 as we close out the war arc. This is officially the last episode of the war arc. So next week, we're going to have a fresh new look at a different arc. There are so many problems that need solving, and we're going to look at solving those right away. If you've been listening to my rewrite this far, I really appreciate the dedication. Sometimes I look back at my nearly 60 episodes and wonder if it's taking too long. A story is a story, length shouldn't matter, right? Well, I agree, but I'm also concerned as a content creator. It seems that I'm still steadily growing, so I'm not doing anything wrong per se, but I also don't want people to get fatigued from the story. I wanted to take a moment to explain why I've done such a long-form rewrite. When I initially did the Sakura rewrite, I didn't know anything about Naruto fanfiction. I mean, I knew it existed, but I had no idea how prolific others were with fanfiction in general. Honestly, I thought at the time that fanfiction was just people trying to fulfill their erotic fantasies. So I truly thought I was doing something original with the Sakura rewrite. And after that rapidly became my most viewed video on the channel, I started to do a little research into other rewrites. Except, literally every single rewrite I found was an AI voice reading a script of doubtlessly like 100,000 words across 12 hours with one boring background. And it was rarely even that channel's fanfiction. Often it was just copy-pasted, pulled from some forum that has thousands of fanfictions on it. I didn't want to put such low effort into my rewrite. I've used AI once to create a couple of images, but everything else has been handmade by myself. I obviously use imagery from the show itself, but I've written all of the scripts from scratch and read all of it with my own voice. Lots of people have said that I'm copying Daigo Knight or some other Naruto channel, but I did not start out as a Naruto channel, so I didn't do any research at all into what other channels existed or what they did. I just put out a what if Sakura didn't suck that turned into a rewrite, and everything has just naturally occurred from there. Anyway, other news, I learned how to watermark, but I don't exactly have a channel logo yet. I'm really interested in combining art from anyone willing to donate it. I'm willing to use art donated in my Discord for some of my original characters in the rewrite, so if you wanted to contribute, I'm 100% in the camp of giving you credit for the contribution. but that also goes for my channel avatar and logo. If someone wants to make an anime version of my Grim Reaper avatar, I think that would be hilarious and awesome. Enough of my nonsense though, let's look forward to next time. Say it with me now, the sky's the limit.